What if I told you that behind the flawless groove and timeless hits of R&B lies voices that radios would not allow through their airwaves anymore? From Aaliyah's smooth vibes that made hearts melt to Ginuwine's seductive falsetto that had fans swooning, these legends once ruled the charts but then vanished like a magician's trick. Here are 15 R&B stars that radio won't play anymore. Aaliyah. Aaliyah was the definition of cool, smooth, and effortlessly timeless. Known as the Princess of R&B, she captured hearts with hits like One in a Million, Are You That Somebody, and Rock the Boat. Her voice had a top-notch quality that made every note feel intimate, every beat feel like it was made just for you. On stage, she carried herself with an unshakable confidence, blending sexy movements with killer vocals that made fans swoon worldwide. So why doesn't radio spin Aaliyah like it should anymore? It's not because her music wasn't fantastic, far from it. After her tragic death in 2001 at just 22, her catalog became complicated to play. Licensing issues with her record label, coupled with the fact that she passed at the peak of her career, created a scenario where her songs were often stuck in limbo. Unlike contemporaries whose estates managed smooth catalog releases, Aaliyah's music often got caught in a maze, leaving fans longing for more. Add to that the passage of time. Trends shifted, new R&B voices emerged, and radio playlists started favoring current chart toppers. Even though her sound still influences countless modern artists, mainstream airplay didn't keep pace. Yet, don't let radio fool you, because Aaliyah's influence is undeniable. Every modern R&B star who experiments with whispery vocals, edgy production, or sultry choreography owes a little nod to her legacy. Streaming services may keep her alive, but the radio dial? Not so much. Aaliyah remains a cultural icon, her artistry breaking barriers in fashion, music videos, and pop culture, reminding listeners that some stars simply outshine the confines of radio programming. Ginuwine. Ginuwine's falsetto and smooth delivery made him the ultimate heartthrob of the late 90s and early 2000s. Hits like Pony, Differences, and In Those Jeans weren't just songs that you listened to, they were experiences to be shared. He had a way of creating intimate vibes, the kind of tracks that made listeners lean closer to the speaker, whether at a party or in the privacy of their headphones. So why doesn't radio play Ginuwine anymore? First, music trends moved. The sensual, slow-tempo R&B he mastered gave way to faster, hip-hop-infused beats dominating playlists. Second, Ginuwine's later releases didn't maintain the commercial punch of his early hits, making program directors hesitant to feature him alongside today's chart toppers. Licensing complications and label transitions didn't help matters either, leaving his catalog sometimes unavailable for easy rotation. Despite the absence from the radio, Ginuwine's impact remains enormous. Pony alone is so iconic that it's become a reference point in pop culture, sampled, covered, and joked about endlessly. Even without regular spins, his artistry still commands respect. From his stage presence to his sensual vocal control, Ginuwine reminds listeners that the art of seduction in music isn't just about lyrics, but in the delivery, rhythm, and confidence of the artist. Radio may have moved on, but fans never did. I mean, can someone really recover from so much artistic excellence? Brandy. Brandy, the vocal Bible, is the definition of smooth, intricate, and soulful. With hits like I Wanna Be Down, The Boy Is Mine, and Have You Ever, she dominated the 90s R&B scene with a voice that could move mountains, or at least make millions of fans swoon. Her harmonies weren't just harmonies. They were layers of emotion, control, and technical brilliance that set her apart from almost every other contemporary artist. She has the ability of turning even the simplest lyrics into intimate confessions you felt personally. But why are radio stations no longer putting Brandy on the list like they used to? First, it's a matter of timing and shifting trends. Brandy peaked in an era when radio was hungry for slow jams, beautiful harmonies, and heartfelt storytelling. Today's airwaves lean heavily toward hip-hop-infused R&B, leaving classic ballads like Almost Doesn't Count on the back burner. Additionally, label transitions, catalog licensing, and legal wranglings over her music have kept some tracks from easy rotation. But let's not forget that most of today's powerhouse vocalists, such as H.E.R. to Summer Walker, still borrows a page or two from Brandy's playbook. Her layering, runs, and soft but piercing mid-range delivery are now standard vocal techniques, taught in studios and appreciated by fans, even if radio rarely broadcasts them. Monica. Monica hit the scene as a teenager and instantly commanded attention. With Don't Take It Personal, Angel of Mine, and The Boy Is Mine, yes, sharing history with Brandy, she proved that she could dominate charts while holding her own as a vocal powerhouse. Monica's voice was both soulful and commanding, with a depth that conveyed heartbreak, love, and confidence all at once. The simple reason why radios don't keep Monica on rotation anymore is because of a mix of timing, industry shifts, and market dynamics. As we already know that with the passage of time came a new invention that sees radios preferring contemporary R&B hits with faster beats, trap influences, and crossover pop R&B tracks to Monica's classic slow jams, full of emotional nuanced style that didn't fit the new radio formula. Coupled with label changes and occasional gaps in releases, many of her best works didn't get the continuous airplay they deserved. Yet, Monica's influence is undeniable. She set the bar for teenage prodigies turned adult stars, showing that consistency, talent, and vocal control can sustain a career even when the charts shift. Radio may overlook her now, but every soulful note, every heartfelt ballad, and every vocal run reminds fans why Monica was, and still is, one of R&B's most respected voices. Jagged Edge. Jagged Edge were the voices behind those smooth harmonies with heartbreak-laden lyrics that you used to hear if you were alive in the late 90s and early 2000s. Hits like Let's Get Married, Where the Party At, and Promise weren't just songs. They were R&B law, defining romance, commitment, and the art of the slow jam. But despite their dominance, radio slowly stopped spinning their tracks. Jagged Edge thrived in an era when radio playlists loved male vocal groups delivering love ballads and seductive jams, but as the R&B landscape shifted towards solo artists and crossover pop hits, slow jams with harmonies weren't considered radio-friendly anymore. Add to that Jagged Edge's transition between labels, contractual hurdles, and occasional hiatuses which interrupted their momentum. Radio thrives on consistent visibility, and even a few years off the radar can be enough for DJs to move on to fresher sounds. Their later albums, while solid, didn't hit the charts with the explosive impact of their early work. Still, fans remember every note. Their ability to blend tenor, baritone, and falsetto in seamless harmony is unmatched. Radio might have sidelined them, but Jagged Edge's influence lives on in every modern male R&B group trying to replicate their chemistry. And let's not forget their duets, collaborations, and wedding playlist staples. They're quietly immortal. Tony spoke in the universal language of music to a world that was not prepared for the artistic mastery they displayed through their craft. They were so good in how they delivered that they earned the bragging rights to be referred to as the kings of smooth, funky beats, blending soul, jazz, and early New Jack Swing into R&B perfection. Classics like Feels Good, Anniversary, and If I Had No Loot made you move, swoon, and feel all at once. But here's the plot twist. Despite their legendary status, radio rarely plays them today because their blend of funk-infused R&B and live instrumentation, revolutionary in the late 80s and early 90s, didn't translate easily into the digital, beat-heavy playlists of the 2000s. Then there were label issues, hiatuses, and members pursuing solo projects, which diluted the group's collective presence. Radio loves consistency and hype, and Tony went quiet at the wrong time. Yet their legacy is alive in every smooth R&B track with layered instrumentation and storytelling. Artists like D'Angelo, Raphael Saadiq, a member, and even Beyoncé in her early days drew inspiration from their harmonic complexity. Radio may have moved on, but anyone who's ever spun a vinyl or cranked a classic CD knows these legends are timeless. SWV, Sisters with Voices. SWV brought attitude, sass, and soulful fire to the R&B scene like few others could, with hits like Weak, Right Here, Human Nature, and I'm So Into You. Didn't just climb the charts, they became cultural touchstones. Their chemistry was undeniable, with vocal harmonies so tight and precise that every note felt like it was carefully stitched together to perfection. On stage, they radiated charisma, combining powerhouse vocals with playful energy, choreographed moves, and a confidence that made fans believe they were witnessing something extraordinary. During the 1990s, SWV wasn't just a girl group. They were the female R&B powerhouses that every radio station wanted on rotation. So why did radio start ignoring them? It wasn't because they lacked talent. Far from it. By the early 2000s, audiences craved solo divas with crossover pop appeal or hip-hop infused female acts with a more contemporary sound. SWV's harmonious girl group style, once the epitome of R&B excellence, was suddenly labeled old school in mainstream radio's eyes. The duo's timing, unfortunately, collided with an era obsessed with innovation over tradition. Internal group dynamics added to the challenge. When members began pursuing solo projects or took breaks, their collective visibility diminished. Label struggles with occasional releases further complicated the situation for them. Without constant new material or promotional push, radio programmers gradually moved on, favoring fresh voices and newer acts. Even reunion attempts, while celebrated by diehard fans, didn't fully restore their presence on mainstream airwaves. Despite this, SWV's influence is undeniable. Every girl group that followed them owes a nod to their vocal layering, attention to harmonies, stage choreography, and unshakable swagger. They helped define the blueprint for female R&B groups, demonstrating how personalities, performance, and talent could merge into iconic artistry. While radio might have sidelined their tracks, true fans and savvy Spotify playlists still keep SWV alive, introducing their music to new generations who may never know the radio love they once commanded. Changing Faces. Changing Faces, the sultry duo behind G-T-T-O-U-T and Stroke You Up, were R&B royalty of the 1990s. Their slow jams were intimate, their chemistry palpable, and their lyrical storytelling vivid, making every track feel like a private conversation with the listener. From the moment their harmonies hit the airwaves, fans knew they were witnessing something special, a duo capable of blending sensuality and emotion in perfect balance. Yet despite their undeniable talent, radio barely touches their catalog today. Why did such an iconic pair fade from mainstream rotation? It is a mix of the music industry's obsession with newer trends, label disputes, and the natural shelf life of R&B hits. Changing Faces did not maintain constant visibility, and in the fast-moving world of radio rotations, absence equals oblivion. The duo faced challenges in getting consistent promotion and navigating label expectations, which limited the longevity of their airplay. In addition, the rise of solo artists, hip-hop-infused R&B, and new female groups in the early 2000s shifted the spotlight away from duos, leaving Changing Faces' catalog increasingly neglected. However, radio silence does not equal irrelevance. Fans remember every note, every layered harmony, and every heartfelt delivery. Songs like G-T-T-O-U-T became anthems of empowerment and emotional honesty, while Stroke You Up demonstrated their ability to blend sensuality with vulnerability. Changing Faces may not dominate airwaves today, but their legacy endures in the playlists of devoted fans, in the influence they had on later R&B acts, and in the countless artists who draw inspiration from their sound. The magic of Changing Faces lies not just in their hits, but in their artistry, the perfect fusion of intimacy, vocal precision, and storytelling. Their music reminds us that timeless R&B does not need constant radio play to remain relevant. It is felt, remembered, and celebrated, ensuring that Changing Faces remains unforgettable to anyone who truly loves the genre. K-Psy and JoJo. K-Psy and JoJo, the sibling duo with voices that could melt steel, first made waves as part of Jodishi, one of the most influential R&B groups of the 1990s. With hits like Come and Talk to Me, Forever My Lady, and Stay, they didn't just top charts, but redefined what it meant to deliver raw, emotional, heart-on-sleeve R&B. KCI's powerhouse lead vocals, dripping with grit and passion, paired perfectly with JoJo's smoother, more controlled harmonies, creating a yin and yang dynamic that made every song feel intensely personal. Their music wasn't merely entertainment. It became therapy for listeners navigating heartbreak, love, and life's trials. And for a generation of fans, their ballads were emotional lifelines. When they branched out as a duo in the late 1990s and early 2000s, K-Psy and JoJo continued to dominate with hits like All My Life, a track that remains a wedding and slow dance top pick even decades later. The emotional depth of that song, coupled with their signature harmonies, reminded fans why they fell in love with the duo in the first place. Yet, despite their undeniable talent and loyal fan base, radio began to turn away from them at some point due to the shift in R&B's soundscape when the genre started embracing faster tempos and solo artists who could deliver crossover pop appeal. The tender, soulful ballads that defined K-Psy and JoJo's sound soon became unfit to be neatly keyed into these new radio formats, leaving their songs sidelined even as fans continued to stream and cherish them. Internal issues also made matters worse for them when personal challenges started to occasionally interrupt their tours and delay releases, making consistent airplay difficult to maintain. Label changes and management disputes also added another layer of complication, limiting promotion for their newer material. Meanwhile, JoJo shifted focus toward production and behind-the-scenes work, which reduced their visibility in live performances and public appearances. Without constant exposure, even legendary voices like theirs began to fade from mainstream rotation. Kelly Price. Kelly Price is nothing short of a vocal powerhouse, a diva whose voice can cut through the noise and hit straight to the heart. Long before she became a solo superstar, Price honed her craft as a backing vocalist for legends like Mariah Carey and Michael Jackson. That experience gave her the tools to command a stage, shape her own sound, and develop a vocal prowess that few in R&B could match. Her debut album, Soul of a Woman, dropped in 1998, and she quickly became known for hits like Friend of Mine, You Should Have Told Me, and As We Lay. Each track was a masterclass in emotional delivery, with Kelly layering her harmonies, bending notes, and infusing every lyric with raw honesty. She didn't just sing, she told stories that listeners felt in their bones. Despite her brilliance, radio slowly began to pull back. Part of the issue was timing. Her prime coincided with the late 90s and early 2000s shift in mainstream R&B, and Kelly Price's sound, which was deeply rooted in gospel-infused R&B, was considered too niche for the changing radio landscape. So while her voice was unmatched, the industry's appetite for faster, trendier tracks meant that even her strongest hits didn't always receive consistent airplay. Label changes and internal music industry politics also played a role. Promotional pushes for her albums were often inconsistent, leaving radio stations with fewer reasons to spin her tracks regularly. Meanwhile, Price focused on collaborations, gospel projects, and behind-the-scenes work, which further reduced her mainstream visibility. This combination of timing, industry shifts, and strategic choices gradually moved her off the airwaves, even as fans continued to adore her. But don't get it twisted, because Kelly Price's impact on R&B is monumental. Every modern female vocalist who blends power with emotion owes a nod to her influence. Jasmine Sullivan, HER, and even Beyoncé's ballad-heavy tracks carry echoes of Price's style, the dramatic crescendos, the soul-bearing vulnerability, and the ability to command a song's narrative with nothing but pure vocal talent. She has inspired an entire generation of singers, proving that artistry cannot be erased even when radio moves on. Her live performances remain electrifying. Fans swear by the goosebumps-inducing power of hearing her sing classics like "Friend of Mine" or "You Should Have Told Me" in person. Social media and streaming platforms have also helped her maintain a presence, as newer audiences discover her genius and realize that the radio silence doesn't equate to irrelevance. Kelly Price's story is a lesson in enduring artistry. Radios may not be playing her songs consistently anymore, but her legacy is eternal. Each note she sings, every lyric she delivers, reminds listeners why she was and still is one of R&B's greatest voices of all time. She proves that true talent doesn't fade away. It only grows stronger, waiting for fans who know how to appreciate it. Faith Evans. Faith Evans, often crowned the queen of hip-hop soul, burst onto the R&B scene in the mid-1990s with a voice that was equal parts velvet and fire. Her debut album, Faith, introduced the world to hits like "You Used to Love Me," "Soon as I Get Home," and "Love Like This." Each song showcased her ability to blend strength, vulnerability, and impeccable vocal technique, instantly cementing her as one of the most formidable voices of her generation. With every note, Faith Evans created a connection through songs that were deeply personal yet universally relatable, tackling love, heartbreak, resilience, and self-empowerment. Her early career was closely intertwined with the hip-hop world. Signing with Bad Boy Records, Faith became a fixture in the rap and R&B crossover era, collaborating with Puff Daddy, the Notorious B.I.G., and other iconic artists. These partnerships not only elevated her visibility, but also shaped the sound of 1990s R&B, merging soulful vocals with hip-hop beats. Tracks like "All Night Long" and her work with Biggie on "One More Chance" remain legendary, cementing her influence in both genres. Yet, despite her undeniable talent and cultural impact, radio gradually began to phase her out when musical trends shifted toward younger artists and faster tempos designed for crossover appeal. Faith Evans' classic, soulful ballads were suddenly considered old school in an industry chasing charts, club hits, and viral moments. Even her powerhouse albums Keep the Faith and The First Lady didn't get the consistent airplay they deserved, despite earning critical acclaim and chart success initially. Personal life drama also played a role in her changing radio presence. Her highly publicized marriage to the late Notorious B.I.G., his tragic death, and the surrounding media scrutiny did eventually overshadow her music. Faith's resilience, however, shone through when she succeeded in turning her personal tragedy into art, channeling grief, love, and empowerment into her songs. Still, the tabloid headlines sometimes diverted attention from her artistry, affecting radio rotations and mainstream visibility. Label disputes also frustrated her release schedules and further complicated her presence on airwaves. Without constant promotional pushes, even an icon like Faith Evans saw her tracks fall off regular rotation. But despite this, her legacy remained intact. Faith Evans continues to tour, perform, and release music, reminding fans why she earned the Queen of Hip-Hop Soul title. Platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube have allowed new listeners to discover her catalog, ensuring that even if radio ignores her, her music continues to thrive. Dru Hill. Dru Hill, the Baltimore-based R&B powerhouse, stormed the 1990s with a mix of smooth harmonies, streetwise swagger, and explosive live performances. With hits like "In My Bed," "How Deep Is Your Love," and "Never Make a Promise," the quartet, Mark Cisco Andrews, Larry Jazz Anthony, Tamir Rasby Ruffin, and James Woody Green, took the airwaves by storm. Their music perfectly blended raw emotion with a polished, radio-friendly sheen, creating tracks that made listeners swoon, cry, and dance all at once. From soulful ballads to upbeat grooves, Dru Hill's sound captured the heart of 90s R&B like few others. Their quick rise to fame wasn't just about music, it was about image and attitude. Cisco, with his flamboyant style and unforgettable dreadlocks, quickly became the face of the group, while Jazz, Woody, and Raz B contributed harmonies that were as tight as a triple-stitched seam. They weren't just singers, they were performers who brought energy, storytelling, and charisma to every stage. Fans could relate to the struggles, heartbreak, and passion embedded in their lyrics, making Dru Hill a fixture in the R&B scene. However, despite their early dominance, radio airplay began to dwindle in the 2000s, and part of the problem was the changing musical landscape, as hip-hop had become the dominant force in mainstream radio, and the boy band style of R&B harmonies, which was once Dru Hill's signature, increasingly got sidelined. Even as their albums like Enter the Dru and Dru World Order achieved success, the airwaves slowly shifted toward trends that didn't favor their style. Internal group tensions also contributed to their radio invisibility. Lineup changes, personal conflicts, and label disputes created instability that affected promotional pushes and album releases. Cisco's solo career, highlighted by Thong Song, diverted attention from the group, creating a fractured narrative that made consistent radio presence challenging. Additionally, the group's sporadic touring and intermittent releases meant they were out of the public eye for stretches of time, further diminishing airplay. Yet, Dru Hill's influence on R&B is undeniable. Their harmonies, choreography, and emotive storytelling inspired countless boy bands and R&B groups that followed. Artists like Jagged Edge and 112 owe a debt to Dru Hill's blueprint of blending smooth vocals with street-smart attitude and stage charisma. Even if radio doesn't play their tracks as frequently, their music lives on through streaming platforms, live performances, and loyal fan communities that refuse to let their legacy fade. Dru Hill's story is one of talent, highs and lows, and enduring artistry. Radio may have moved on to newer trends, but the emotional intensity, vocal skill, and energy they brought to every track remained timeless. Every note from Cisco, Jazz, Woody, and Raz B is a reminder that R&B greatness isn't dictated by playlists, but defined by the hearts of listeners. For fans who remember the golden age of 90s R&B, Dru Hill is still as unforgettable as ever, proving that real talent transcends the whims of the radio dial. Jodeci, aka the Kings of 90s R&B, redefined what it meant to be a boy band with attitude. Comprised of Devante Swing, Mr. Keir Dalvin, K-Ci, and JoJo, the group brought a raw, streetwise edge to soulful harmonies, creating a sound that was both seductive and rebellious. Hits like Forever My Lady, Come and Talk to Me, and Fiendin' were anthems for heartbreak, love, and lust, giving voice to a generation of listeners who craved rawness in R&B. Their rise to fame was very fast, capturing viewers with their perfectly choreographed movements, signature bandanas, and a swagger that screamed, "We don't play by the rules." Jodeci commanded attention wherever they went. They didn't just bring their music to the table, they were about image, attitude, and creating a movement. Fans idolized them, and radio initially couldn't get enough of their passionate sound. But they encountered some challenges when people's musical tastes started to shift, leaving Jodeci's classic style of music less favored by mainstream radio. Coupled with that, they also did encounter some shift in their internal dynamics, which further complicated the whole situation for them. Devante Swing's perfectionism often clashed with other members, while K-Ci and JoJo pursued solo careers, creating gaps in the group's activity and visibility. Label disputes and inconsistent album releases added fuel to the fire, making it harder for radio programmers to prioritize their music. Despite these obstacles, Jodeci's impact is still an undeniable fact till date. They paved the way for a generation of artists like R. Kelly, Drew Hill, and even modern stars like The Weeknd owe a nod to the group's raw, emotional intensity. Their tracks, though less common on radio today, live on through streaming services, nostalgic playlists, and the hearts of fans who grew up swooning to their harmonies. Jodeci proved that style, soul, and swagger never truly go out of fashion. Deborah Cox. Deborah Cox, the Canadian diva with powerhouse vocalist, stormed the R&B scene back in the 1990s like a force of nature. Her breakout hits, Nobody's Supposed to Be Here and We Can't Be Friends, were a clear display of vocal dominance. With a voice that was both crystal clear and emotionally raw, Deborah could shatter glass and hearts simultaneously. Whether she was belting a soul-stirring melody or igniting the dance floor with an up-tempo club track, her technical mastery and stage presence set her apart from nearly every contemporary artist. Her ability to effortlessly bridge R&B and pop allowed her to dominate multiple radio formats, earning her not just chart success, but respect from peers and critics alike. Her hit, Nobody's Supposed to Be Here, became a multi-format sensation, spending weeks atop Billboard charts and establishing Deborah as a household name. Critics praised her control, emotive delivery, and ability to make every lyric feel deeply personal. Fans connected with her unique style, which comprises good storytelling about love, heartbreak, and resilience. Her music was therapeutic and undeniably compelling, drawing a devoted following that spanned generations. Radios no longer play her songs today, not because her fame has fizzled out, but simply because they now have too many options to pick from, with many young talents rising up in great numbers every year, and as a result, Deborah's signature strength began to fall by the wayside over time. In addition to changing tastes, Deborah faced industry challenges with the release of her songs slowing down, changing labels, and the high rate of younger competitors out there, which made it difficult for her to maintain consistent radio presence. Even a vocalist of her caliber could be overlooked when programming favored trendier, younger acts. Despite reduced airplay, Deborah Cox remained fiercely committed to her artistry. She refused to compromise her style, continuing to deliver gospel-infused emotion, polished technicality, and live performances that left audiences spellbound. Her concerts became legendary for vocal precision and emotional depth, reminding fans why she had once dominated R&B airwaves. Deborah's influence extends far beyond her own catalog. Contemporary R&B and soul singers, from Alicia Keys to Jennifer Hudson, carry traces of her emotive style and technical mastery. Her approach to blending vulnerability with vocal power became a blueprint for future generations, cementing her legacy as one of the great voices of her era. Even if mainstream radio has largely moved on, Deborah Cox's artistry remains immortal. Her songs continue to resonate on streaming platforms, live stages, and in the hearts of fans who remember the golden age of 90s and early 2000s R&B. In a world that often chases trends, Deborah stands as proof that true talent, vocal mastery, emotional depth, and dedication never fades. For anyone discovering her today, her music is a masterclass in emotion, technical brilliance, and pure soul. Radio may have turned the page, but Deborah Cox's voice still writes the chapters of R&B history. Brownstone. Brownstone, the female trio behind If You Love Me, Grapevine, and Sometimes Dancin', was nothing short of a revelation in 90s R&B. Comprised of Monica Mimi Doby, Nikki Gilbert, and Charmaine Maxie Maxwell, they delivered harmonies so tight they could make your heart skip a beat. From the first note, it was obvious. Brownstone dished out sounds that were both sophisticated and relatable, blending the intimacy of slow jams with the confidence of performers who owned every stage they stepped on. Their ascent to fame was swift and unforgettable. Signed to Michael Jackson's MJJ Music, Brownstone burst onto the scene with If You Love Me, a song that became an instant classic. Its combination of passion, vulnerability, and vocal perfection earned a Grammy nomination and cemented the trio's position among the R&B elite. Grapevine followed, showing that Brownstone could pivot from sultry love ballads to introspective storytelling tracks without losing their signature magic. They had style, attitude, and stage presence, turning each live performance into an event that fans talked about for years. Yet despite their talent and popularity, radio airplay eventually began to wane. One reason was their internal group dynamics that did play a major role in their decline on the airwaves. Charmaine Maxwell departed the group, and members began pursuing solo endeavors, which fractured Brownstone's once solid chemistry. Without a unified front, promoting new material became a challenge. Label disputes and inconsistent marketing compounded the problem, meaning even excellent new singles struggled to get airtime. So while contemporary radio may have moved on, the story of Brownstone reminds us that true talent doesn't vanish. It waits for listeners willing to remember, celebrate, and share the golden age of R&B. Their songs captured love, heartbreak, empowerment, and vulnerability, which resonated deeply with fans who understood real emotion. They showed that a girl group could command respect through raw talent and artistry, leaving an imprint on R&B culture that cannot be erased. Brownstone represented authenticity and artistry. They weren't chasing trends, they were delivering honest stories about love, heartbreak, and empowerment. Every note from Monica, Nikki, and Maxie was a lesson in vocal technique, emotional storytelling, and stage presence. To uncover more intriguing stories among Hollywood celebrities, don't forget to subscribe. And I'll catch you in the next one. Catch you in the next one. Catch you in the next one. Catch you in